2026. And I am so glad to be with you today to share what it is that I have to share with you today, because I like to be an encourager. Now, here is a reality. No matter how good or bad your life really is, I want you to wake up every morning and be thankful that you have one. Now, here is a reality check. I've mentioned this before. According to the United Nations, 1.3 people will pass into eternity today. Now, I'm not trying to be morbid, I'm not trying to be macabre, but I like to live in a realistic world. And the simple fact is that there are going to be over 200,000 people today who woke up, and many of them will believe that they'll make it throughout the day, when in reality, they won't. So when you wake up every morning and you go to bed every night, be thankful for every moment of each day. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that you're going to face today is going to be wonderful. It doesn't mean that everything you face is going to be, great, but be grateful for the day that you have. Let me share you a little example of that. Yesterday, I got a phone call from my daughter, and she said, Dad, there's water coming into my furnace room. Now, that's a place where she had never had any water before. So I very quickly go over there and look and assess the situation. And I realized that the downspout that she had in her on the back part of her house was facing the wrong direction. Now, it had been put in place because the previous owner thought that because the way the house was sloped, because when you slope your landscape, your house, you always slope the landscaping away from the house. That way, water doesn't get in. Well, they had done that, but there was a small depression in the landscaping, and the rain spout or the eaves trough was facing towards the house. So instantaneously, I knew that I had to change the direction of the downspout. So I went to the local hardware store, got a couple of elbows, and also as well, she had the pipe. So I put the drain out towards the back of her home, because in between her home and her garage, she has a cement pad. So then I thought, she needs a little extension. So I went and got a brown extension. And now her water is, going about 15 to 20 feet away from her house. She's not going to have to worry about that any longer. But you see, it was a crisis at that time because we were supposed to have more rain. And so it was what I had to do. And she ended up having to mop her furnace room extensively, but the water did stop. So the simple fact is that sometimes we have situations in our day that are unexpected. I mean, you might wake up today and you go outside and you go to start your automobile and the automobile doesn't start. Maybe you go outside and you look and you have a flat tire. I want to tell you a funny little situation. I had just set up for a church, and this was when I was living in British Columbia. And I went outside and there was a flat tire. I had a flat tire on my car. Now, I was about ready to, say something when one of my board members showed up and told me, "Oh, you have a problem." I said, "Yes, we do." So we very quickly lifted up took the jack out of the car and lifted up the tire and basically then changed the tire. It was like the other day when I decided to check my wife's car. Now these days I have an electric jack, so that just whoop up it goes. So I was able to check all four tires to make sure that everything was a-okay, because she has a squeak, and one of the front tires is a little tight, so that's what caused the squeak. So at least I knew where the problem was. But you see, it was unexpected. And we have those unexpected moments. When those unexpected moments happen, you make a choice. And that choice is, am I going to get angry or am I going to just get to work? Am I going to be, disgusted about the situation or am I going to take a lesson through this situation? But I want to remind you today that you should be thankful for every day that you live because it also gives you an opportunity to be a blessing, to be an encourager, to be a person who makes someone else's day just a little bit brighter. Just a small act of kindness. For example, opening a door for someone when you are going into a store, or letting someone else have your place in line. This often happens in smaller communities. I see it actually played out almost every day when I go to the grocery store or to a hardware store, where someone will say, I've only got, this many items and you only have one or two. You go ahead. That happened to me the other day when I went into the grocery store. I had two items, and this lady had this great big, huge shopping cart. And she looked at me and she says, You only have two items. Why don't you go ahead of me? And it's wonderful how people will do that. A lot of people don't, but when they do, it's such a blessing. And if you're able to do that for someone else, be a blessing, be an encouragement. Tell someone that you like how they look today. Tell someone that you appreciate their smile, something that will brighten their day, because every day is a gift. Be grateful and make the most of every day that you have, because you and I can be a blessing. You and I can be an encourager. You and I can touch someone in some way. And that little act of kindness could actually change the direction of someone's day. I've seen it over and over again, where just doing an act of kindness, saying the right thing at the right time. It was Solomon who said this: a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pitchers of silver. So that's why I encourage you every day to walk in love. And it was Paul who said, Love is patient and love is kind. So when you and I show love and kindness to other people, I want to tell you something. It doesn't cost you anything. And in fact, I like how one person put it this way. He said, we need to be energy efficient. You say, okay, how do I be energy efficient? How can I be, reduce my carbon footprint? It takes more muscles in your mouth to make a frown than it does a smile. Think about that. So smile and don't frown so much. Show it by something that you should. I just did a video that went like this. Successful people show two things on their face. They show silence and they show a smile. A smile because you know something that people don't, and silence keeps you out of problems. I thought, yeah, it was David who said this: put a watchman on the door of my mouth that I don't sin against you. So basically, David said, there's a time to speak and there's a time not to speak. And the real wisdom is knowing when. And when you smile, you're being energy efficient. These are simple things that you and I can do every day to be a blessing to somebody else. So today, no matter how you feel, or no matter how life may feel at the time, wake up every morning and be thankful that you still have one. And recognize that every day is a gift. Remember, the past is in the past, and the future, you do not know what it holds. But today is a present. It's a gift. And we should be grateful and walk in gratitude. In fact, we should have an attitude of gratitude. Let that be your attitude today and make the most of it. That's my simple encouragement and word for you today. So If you like what you're hearing and seeing, I always encourage you to press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to thank all the people who have been subscribing to my YouTube channel and been watching my videos every day. I do YouTube Shorts. That means that they are little videos that are designed to bring one thought. And that one thought may be something that you need to hear today. I always try to make my videos encouraging and helpful and also as well beneficial. You know, there was an old radio uh, station that said, "We're here today to illuminate, elucidate, encourage, and also as well be, a source of goodness and information." That's what I try to do with my daily videos. Sometimes, they're a little bit truthful, but they are desired to be encouraging. So check out my YouTube shorts. My name is Robert Dean Steele, wishing you a great day. And remember, this day is a gift. Be grateful and make the most of it. Have yourself a great and godly day.